Mm-mm.
Oh,
Mm-mm. You're fine. You mean like silence yourself? You're good. Okay. Hi, this is Darla Morrison, and welcome to the Lioness Summit. We have been having some technical difficulties, and we recovered. So, very grateful for that opportunity to uh, have everybody pop back on. Perseverance. That's what we're talking about tonight. So we got to experience a little bit of that tonight. So we will be talking about how perseverance leads to excellence. And these women tonight are phenomenal. They are changing their world, and you are going to love what they have to share with you about how they come from so many different backgrounds and how they've used their perseverance and their journey to become just learning how to live out their life to the fullest that they can and have a lot of courage in the whole process. So I want to thank you for being here tonight, and I want to encourage you, if you have any questions, please send them to us. And if you have any other thoughts about perseverance, about being having a life of excellence, we all want to talk about having a life of excellence, and it sounds so nice and noble, but the hard fact is that a life of excellence is hard. It's hard work, and it's work you have to work on every day and be intentional about it. The definition of perseverance is to continue on, to keep doing something, even when there is failure, when there's adversity, when you have setbacks, and that you keep going on to your achieved goal. And isn't that what life is? That we have to persevere every day and in so many different ways. There's never an end of it. And the joy of understanding that is that there's a lot of hope in persevering. And every day you get to see yourself in a much better light. I love what some of these ladies have already been sharing with me, some of their favorite quotes. And I can't wait for them to share that with you tonight. So I'm going to take a few minutes and introduce you to our speakers here. So our first one that I will be introducing you to is going to be Dr. Emily Sims. She is from Jacksonville State University in Alabama. Go Gamecocks. And she is the head of the department there in secondary education. And she is national board certified teacher. And she may correct me on that if I've got the initials wrong. She's phenomenal. She is a wife. She's a mom of two amazing young men. She is an entrepreneur, and she's one of the most positive people I have ever been around. I've known her for over 25 years now, and I can honestly say she's the real deal. So I'd like for Emily to share a little bit about what got you into teaching.
Hello, Darla, and hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here to share with you some of my insights on what perseverance and excellence means to me. So a little bit about my background. I was raised in a military family, so I've had an opportunity to live in a variety of different places, United States, about 6 different states, and in Germany. And what I learned is that diverse people bring into you a diverse life. And I think this prepped me for the teaching, my profession today, which I did initially start out with. My actual initial degree was in business. And so I had an opportunity to get in the classroom and realize that's exactly where God needed me to be. And after being in the classroom, I realized that I could exponentially impact the teaching profession by preparing teachers to be teachers. And so that's what I do right now is I prepare middle and high school teachers in the field of education, oversee programs and faculty at Jacksonville State University.
Yes. So Emily, when she reached the age, she's always doing amazing, fun things anyway. And the first time I got to go to a TED talk was with her and one of her other staff members there at Jacksonville State University. We had so much fun. I was just blown away. I'm a geek and a nerd about learning and hearing about new things. So Emily, when she turned 50, decided that she was going to turn her world upside down. And it was like the pivot point in your life. And if you go on her site, and even if you go on her site there at Jacksonville State University, you're going to see her doing headstands in the middle of football fields, on the top of mountains, everywhere. And I want her to tell us about that. Where did you get that idea from?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, it's not anything this was not intentional, even though I think much of life needs to be intentional. This was not. I turned 50 and I realized, oftentimes we as a society view 50 as being, you begin to become what they call over the hill. That is, by the way, so not true. So I decided, because I've done yoga, so I'm a pretty flexible person. So I thought, I can still do a headstand. So I realized how symbolic a headstand can be. It's like an hourglass, and you turn it upside down. It's almost like turning back time. And I mean that in the most metaphorical way possible. And so what I began to realize is, like, every day is a new day. We get to start, every day you wake up, you get to start over. And how many times in life can you really think, if you think about that, how that can be so empowering? And so I would just find these cool places, and I've been keeping up with these headstands, and I have little vignettes that I write with them. Kind of life notes, so to speak. And one day I'm going to put that all together and share with people. So in the meantime, it's kind of just really exciting and something fun.
I can't wait to see it. I can't wait because it's really entertaining and very fun. And I appreciate you being on here tonight. Thank you. And you're coming from, you're at your office right now.
I'm at my office right now. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. So our next speaker, Mandy Hart, is coming all the way to us from South Africa. It's 2:00 in the morning there, or about 2:30 there now. And thank you, Mandy, for having the courage to get up at this in the middle of the night to be here with us. Thank you so much. Mandy is an author of 2 books so far.
Actually,
and 4. Oh my gosh. So thank you for correcting me. I can't wait to hear about all of them. Her latest one, Courage in the Fire, has just been recently released. She is a mom. She is a wife. She is a human advocate and just great with teaching women. She's a runner, and I appreciate you being here. So tell us a little bit, Mandy, what got you into what you're doing here with books and coming to us even here in the middle of the night?
Yeah. Yeah, Donna, I really am motivated about seeing healthy individuals, healthy families, healthy communities, marriages, all of that. And this book that I have here, Courage in the Fire, it speaks about overcoming a fear-driven life. I live in South Africa. It's a violent country. And I'm an advocate against gender-based violence. And, a few years back, my daughter and I were in an armed robbery, and fear kind of invaded our home and our lives. The trauma that came from that affected our lives for years to come. And at the same time, we were involved in missions. We were leaders of a cross-cultural missions movement. I've traveled to the Middle East, to Europe, Africa, East and West Africa. And I started to realize that fear is the same all over the world. It just looks different to different people's lives. And so I started to speak out, about overcoming fears, and it just evolved from there. I love running in the vineyards. I live in Stellenbosch, and I get to run through vineyards and olive trees with my dogs. It's really great. So yeah, thank you for having me with you today. I look forward to seeing how the conversation will develop.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Now you have 2 Scotty dogs, is that right?
I have 2 Scotties and a Ridgeback.
So how do the Scotties keep up with the Ridgeback when you're running?
No, they can't run. Hobbs and Tori just walk. But Nola runs a sub 4 minutes a kilometer, which I can't keep up with. But yeah, she keeps me faster.
That's awesome. I thank you once again, Mandy, for being here. Can't wait to hear some more about what you have to share with us on having courage in the middle of fear, and how impactful that courage can be. And it overcomes everything. But stepping into courage takes courage.
Yeah,
so
it's not an easy thing. I think, especially in the light of what's happening in the world right now, we need courage more than ever before.
Definitely. So thank you for being here, sharing that with us. So our next guest is Holly Taylor, and talk about having courage. She is also a courageous woman. She has been, she's a naval officer, a retired naval officer. She is taken on working on her PhD in philosophy. She is a wife. She is an expert fitness just guru. She's fabulous with all of that. And I would like, Holly, why the Navy, and did it take a lot of courage to step into being in the Navy?
Yes. When I went to join the military, it was for the education, because I had a friend that had joined, and she was telling me about the GI Bill and how, if you served for 4 years, you would get money for college. And so I actually went to join the Marine Corps, and there was nobody there. So I just went to the next door, and it was the Navy. And my whole goal was to just do the 4 years, get the GI Bill, and get out and go to college. But I ended up staying for 26 years. I absolutely loved it. I wouldn't change a thing about it. I did pursue my education while I was on active duty, and I think education is so important. And I still am today pursuing education. I just think it's really important.
You're an avid learner.
Yes.
You love to keep learning, and
Yes.
and that, to me, that takes your choice to stay in. That took a lot of courage, because I know you had a lot of choices to make, and I would love to unpack that a little bit more. What made you decide to stay past the 4 years?
Well, you come into the military, and the very first time that I decided to stay was because I had gotten shore duty. So in the Navy, you rotate from sea to shore, and so I had done the tough part, so to speak, of being stationed overseas, and so I got shore duty in Pensacola, Florida. So I decided to go ahead and stay. As a kid growing up, that was a dream vacation, to go to Florida to the beach. So to be able to be stationed there for a couple of years, I thought that I'll go ahead and do that. And actually, that's where I began pursuing my education at Pensacola Junior College, which is now Pensacola State. But and then the second time I decided to stay, I had got promoted, and that just really changed everything. I think was that around that my 7-year mark, when I made E5, you get more leadership responsibility, and I just really loved what I was doing. And then after that, it was a challenge to get to the next pay grade and get the next promotion, and I just kept going.
That's amazing. And I think it's wonderful that so Holly was also pretty active in athletics in high school, if I remember right. And so she's always had the propensity to be very involved and have leadership, because I know when you're active in athletics at the level you are, there's a leadership skill that's developed in that comes from the perseverance. And all of our speakers that are here today have been connected with athletics, have been connected with learning, and perseverance plays into every bit of that. So the courage, how, let's just start off with that, and then we'll lead into it. How do you come up with your definition of what you think courage is, Holly?
I believe courage is standing up for what you believe is right, no matter what. Just like leaving home to go into the military, it was against everything that my father ever. Like, I look back now, and I still don't know how I had the courage to leave. But I just think that you just have something deep inside that drives you, and that if you want it bad enough, you go after it, I believe.
Yeah. And you did. So, Emily, for you, coming into a life of coming out of, you switched from the thought process of, I'm going to be in business, and now I'm going to be a teacher. That took a lot of courage too, because I know you were thinking about everything. I know you think everything logistically through, and you do the pros and the cons. How did you pick that over business?
I don't necessarily think I picked it. It rather picked me. So I think that was more of the story behind that. But
okay, wait. Okay, now the last two of you, this is what's happening. So, the things happen to lead you to where you are, which is very interesting. We'll talk about that too.
I do believe that, that was supposed to happen, because so much of what I've learned through, my business training, I use in education. Especially in my leadership roles within education, so much of that is necessary, because you are school is a business. If you think about this, education is a business, and our students are customers. So from that aspect, I don't think I've diverged too much from that aspect. The focus is just more on, the learning part of it versus the profit part of it.
Oh, y'all don't make the same profits in education that you do in business?
We invest in making a difference in lives, which you can't put a price.
Yes, you do. You do, definitely. So I'd like to talk to Mandy about this too. So having courage to be in the field of missions, to step into that. I know that had at any age that takes courage. What did that look like to you at the time when you decided this is really what I know this is my purpose?
Yeah. It actually also, again, kind of caught us by surprise. My husband started a strategic brand agency. We're involved. I was involved locally. We lived in a different town. Wow. And but we always just wanted to pursue what God had in store for us. We've always loved the nations. We've always wanted to live the stories and live an adventure. I think that's something that Neil and I have always wanted to do, is have an adventure. And if you'll indulge me for a moment, I just want to tell a brief story. So a few years back, we heard actually an American telling the story of how he read a book about going on an African safari. And I've been on plenty of safaris. I've seen lionesses, cubs. I've seen giraffe and rhinos. We see them often in South Africa. So anyway, so this American was telling the story of him having read this book of going on a safari. And then he said, yes, he wanted to actually be the one to tell the stories, firsthand stories. And my husband and I looked at each other and we said, we want to be like that. We want to live an adventurous life, that should we get to 80 or 90, we want to have those stories to tell of when we did these things. We went to Ghana and we went to Jordan and we explored different countries and, the US and UK and all over, and encountering different people. And so when we took the step to go into missions, saying, okay, we're not going to earn a salary, we're going to live by faith, that was really scary. On top of that, I was in the armed robbery quite early on in our international leadership role, and just wanting to protect our children and navigating so many things. It does come with a cost. I think any leadership role comes with a cost, and to say yes to something means you have to say no to other things. So it really was a test. But one of the things that we also really believe strongly in is that your character needs to grow and develop to be able to match your calling. If you call to leadership, you've got to have a strong character, and that doesn't come through easy times. Gold is forged under fire. So your character is shaped when you go through fire. It doesn't get shaped when you're going through really easy times.
I love that. I'm sitting here writing that down because that is so true, that your character does reflect your calling, and it's going to match up your calling. And it's.
But I also believe, though, Darla, you can have a calling, and if you haven't taken time to develop your character, work through the tough things, I think sometimes you can fall short, and then you can end up not walking in the fullness of who you were made to be and what God has destined for you, because you haven't paid the price of going through those dark times to get to the other side.
And I appreciate you bringing that up, because and I'm trying to shape this too because of what you just said about going through the dark times. I know that we all have that. Every one of us, and all of you watching, can say, I've hit this dark spot, and I'm trying to teach myself even how to say brokenness, because we're not really broken. We have things happen to us, but God does not create broken people. God creates people, and we make some choices, or we're in situations that can challenge us, that can make us think we're broken when we're really not. We just have had things happen to us, and this perseverance and a life of excellence comes from realizing that these dark moments that happen in your life, you have a choice. You can either let them define you and make you stop living out your excellent life, or you can persevere on into it. And perseverance is not easy. And like you said, you are forged in the fire. And I appreciate you bringing that out, because that to me is what a life of excellence is. It's hard. It's going to be forged through the difficult times. And so, Holly, when I think of the Navy, when I think of any of the military, because my dad was in the Navy, and I've been around a lot of military people who have a standard of excellence. Did you already see that in your life through sports? What brought you to understand, like, this is worth going through this for, because I want this excellence. This is what I'm aiming for?
Well, I think goals are important, and so I always had a goal, and so whatever I had to go through to get there, um, I just knew I needed to do it. I always had faith as well. I've always been a
Mm,
Christian and had faith that it would put me through what I needed to go through, and He would get me through what I needed to go through. And
mm,
we had a saying in the Navy, at least I did, and I always used to tell my guys, embrace the suck. If you just embrace it, you'll just get through it. And if you want it bad enough, then you'll do it. And if you want, and I think that we all go through things for a reason. And then also, I think that what we go through makes us who we are. It makes us better.
mm.
Um, yeah, I just can't say enough about
Yes.
that.
Well, and that's, I mean, that was one thing that was taught to me. I mean, my mom and my dad, it was everything is going to be done at this level up here, everything, because they lived it every day. And I, I, some people make it look easy. You ladies looking at y'all right now, people are going to think, gosh, they've got their act together. They've got it made. They know what they're doing. And that's why I appreciate us having a chance to come in here and have a conversation for everyone who's watching to understand it's a continual process. No one ever really achieves it, because if you ever think you've achieved it, then you really haven't. And going through the dark times, the fire, going through the difficult times, embracing the suck, that is really, number one, to me, it teaches you, is this really what you want to do? Is this really what you want to keep doing? But the second thing is, it just really shows you, hey, I didn't know I could do that. I made it through all that yesterday. I can do this again. I can do this next step. Did you ever see that when you were coming up in the ranks in military, or did it ever plateau, I guess is what I'm saying, with coming up?
Yes, it did. There was a lot of things that I didn't do because I was scared. When I came in the military, women weren't allowed on combat ships. And so I didn't get, and I kind of was glad, because I was scared of going to a ship. I'd heard stories about it. It did not sound like something I wanted to do. And then when I had reached a certain level in my career, one of the next steps was going and learning how to drive a ship, an aircraft carrier. And so,
What?
and
Oh my gosh.
I know, and I had never been on a ship at all. So I was way behind all of my male peers who had been on ships their whole career. I think I had been in the Navy for almost 20 years before I went to my first ship. And that's what my
Wow.
first ship was, where I had to learn how to drive it. And I just, I had to work harder and I had to work longer, but I was determined to do it. And I did it. I got that qualification, and it's something, I mean, there's only 11 aircraft carriers in the Navy right now, and I can say that I got qualified to drive one, and it's a huge accomplishment.
That is awesome. I'm serious. I'm sitting here thinking, my mind is like swimming, because I'm like, wow. And I had a hard time learning how to drive a car and a tractor, and you're out driving an aircraft carrier through the ocean. That's phenomenal and scary at the same time, because
Yes,
I can imagine that you wanted to step back and say, no, I can't do this.
exactly.
And you had to step up in that. I don't want to say it's a dark moment. To me, perseverance comes through also the moments that someone calls you out and says, are you ready to do this? And inside you're shaking like a little chihuahua, and you're going, no, I can't do this. I've never done this before. But you do it anyway. You do it afraid.
Yes.
And that to me is courage too. And I wanted to ask you, Emily, so when you were facing these either the dark moments or these moments where you're just called in at the last second and said, hey, you're doing this, and inside you're shaking too, when did you ever face that and had to persevere through it?
Well, I'm thinking about some moments, and I don't think there's a particular moment, but I think
Mm-hmm.
we're all being honest with ourselves and being true to who we are. There was always moments that were fearful, but it goes back to don't let your fears will make you small. And I think that's one of the things that you guys can't see this, but I'm right at 5 foot tall. But I feel like part of what I have to realize about myself too is that my height doesn't define me. And so internally, I've got this, I can do this. And I really think, it's so amazing to hear Holly's background, but because I feel like the military, because of the discipline that instills within, my dad, he in turn instilled that within us and our family.
Yeah.
And now we're grown adults with our own children, but that type of lifestyle still resonates with us. So now we've raised our children with that same type of mindset. So I think discipline is definitely something that's critical to perseverance. You have to be disciplined. If you're not disciplined, you have more of an opportunity to, find excuses to do what you should be doing. And I don't think that's easy. And I think sometimes we look for the easy, but there's no growth in the easy. The times that I find myself growing, not just personally, but also professionally, is when things are hard. That's when I grow. When things are easy, I get absolutely zero satisfaction out of that. Like that's not me. I don't like the easy. I like the thing like
the challenge.
Yeah, the challenge is just, that's what gives me fuel. It's like, so nobody's ever done this before. Let me think about this. So that's what inspires me.
I like that. So what about you, Mandy and Holly? Does it empower you when somebody says, do this, and you think, I don't know if I can do this or not, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to take this on? Is it a challenge or what?
Absolutely. I love for people to tell me I can't do something.
I can see that. That. What about you, Mandy?
Yeah, I think so. I think, if you're familiar with Enneagram, I'm a 7. And so I want to always try everything, all the new opportunities. So yes, I definitely think so. I think challenges are opportunities for to do new things, to push yourself a little harder, and they're also opportunities to overcome and also learn new things. So yes, I think so.
And I love that. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram too, and I want things done yesterday. I want them done well, but I want to have fun doing them. And I take on challenges. It's funny, the things that I would rather take on than have to get on the phone and make a cold call. I would jump out of a plane before I would do that. But to me, and that brings out the point that I wanted to ask you. So perseverance and courage. Do you really think you have to have the courage to persevere, or do you think you need to be persevering? Which comes first, the perseverance or the courage?
It's kind of like a hen and what's the egg and chicken story.
The chicken and the egg, yeah.
I like what Holly and Emily said. I think you need that discipline. It's that inner life, because we actually live from the inside out. I really believe that the inner disciplines shape our outer actions, and so you need to have certain disciplines in your life to persevere, but at the same time, you need to grow courage. And courage is the ability to do something that frightens one. And so when you recognize, hang on, this is maybe beyond my skill level, this is perhaps too big for me, or I've never done this before, you can definitely spend time praying, asking God to give you courage. You can also, I think you can also borrow from other people's confidence in their faith and their courage, is saying, okay, if they've done that, then I can also learn to overcome. So I definitely think that I think it's a bit of both, but I think perseverance is fueled by some courage, because when you need to persevere, you need to carry on. And it's kind of like building that resilience in your life, and the difficulties and the delays and the setbacks. You need the courage to say, look, I'm going to stay the course. I'm going to carry on. And so, yeah, I definitely think it's, for me personally, I'd say it's courage that feeds into the perseverance.
How about you, Holly? Which do you think came first for you?
Well, I believe courage. I had to have the courage to make a decision. And so once you have that courage to make the decision, then you need the perseverance to get through that decision that you made, whether it was the right one or the wrong one. That's, that's one of the things that the Navy taught me from an early age is, as a leader, you make a decision. It may not be the right one, but you have to make a decision, and you have to have the courage to make that decision. If you don't have the courage to make that decision, then once you do that, you persevere and get through it.
I love that. So Emily, your quote that you shared with me the other day about making decisions, I would love for you to share that, because that is exactly what Holly was saying. The one about making decisions.
Well, let me just go ahead and share this with you since we were talking about this. This is actually in my office. Can you guys see that? Can you see
I cannot.
It says, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you.
Ah, I love that.
And so I pull this up and show this to my students. So when things are hard, they're supposed to be hard because it changes you. And I don't mean change like you're not being true to yourself. I mean change to improve a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
So decision making, going back to what you said, Darla, and I'm looking back, there's a question that I think somebody asked about, how do you encourage yourself in time of uncertainty? And I think I can kind of tie those things within the two. I think it has to do with asking yourself questions. And here's the thing about questioning. That's not a natural thing. And I think it's a developed skill set that people need to learn. And it's an individual thing. It's not about knowing the answer. It's about knowing the right questions to ask. And I think in knowing the right questions to ask, that's where the growth comes from. And I think, how do you encourage yourself in times of uncertainty? I think that would require more questions, more digging into, okay, give me some circumstances around this uncertainty. Talk to me about what that means. And then as far as like, how do you encourage that? I think the encouraging comes through questioning. We talked earlier about, is this something that's important to you? Well, if it's not, then why are we carrying on this conversation? Let's move on to something that is important to you.
Yeah, I like that. The asking yourself the hard questions and learning how to ask questions comes from being around another group of people who have already learned how to do that, and surrounding yourself with some really great people who understand the art of persevering and forming a life of excellence. Making a decision is vital in all of that. You can overthink way too long. I am the queen of that. I think I got a couple of trophies and overthinking everything. And it's like standing in the doorway. When you stand there and spend too much time trying to figure out how I'm going to show up right here instead of just doing it, you lose moments. And sad to say, I know I have, and I think we all have, and that's where we learn, do I want to keep doing that, or do I just want to make a decision and do this and let courage catch up with me, and just step out.
I think you can ask yourself worst case scenarios. If I do that, what's the worst thing that can happen? And you begin to realize, the worst thing is really not that bad. And so that will kind of help push you through that also. But what if the best thing happened? And if we can really change our mindset, because we can't be thinking about the worst and the best at the same time.
True. That is so true. So Holly, what about you and Mandy too on that? So the worst case scenario, did that ever play out in y'all's minds when you're making decisions?
Mandy, you can go first.
I was deferring to you. I was waiting for you. Okay, but I think I do sometimes think, what is the worst case scenario? What is the worst thing that could happen? But because I'm naturally a positive person, I always see the glass half full. I always think, what good thing could come from that? I love what Emily said. I actually had made a note on it, also about asking questions and learning the art of asking a good question. That's one of the ways to wisdom. And so when you're asking better questions, it helps you move towards that perseverance and striving towards excellence, because you start to ask those questions. And I think, so I don't know if that kind of answers the question a little bit, but yeah.
Okay. How about you, Holly?
And, honestly, I'm not that kind of person. Failure is just not an option. So I just will do what I have to do to persevere.
Have you always been positive? Have you always been that positive of a person?
Probably not. Some people will probably say no. I mean, I have my moments where I'm negative.
We all do.
Out to sea for 10 months with no port call. That's, but I do try to, especially as you grow as a leader, you have to be that positive influence for the people that are underneath you. So, I always, if I'm in a situation where things aren't going well, I always think about, what can I do to improve myself? Like if I'm in a job that I don't like, well, what can I do? I got the job down pat, but what can I do to make myself healthier or smarter? And that's where the learning comes in, and the working out. And I'm always trying to do something to improve myself.
I love that. And I see you doing that too. I see you doing that in everything that you take on. So as a leader, how do you teach perseverance? Is it teaching them, hey, just embrace the suck and let's just keep going? Or do you help teach them some skills that they can feel a little better about stepping into something new that scares them and
Well,
to persevere through it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That goes back to, I believe that we're all where we're supposed to be. We go through things for a reason, and I've always used my experiences. I feel like I've went through those experiences so that I can share them with others that may go through the same thing. And so I've always used my experiences to encourage other people. But I'm also honest. Like, I'm also, this may not be easy. But this is what you need to do to get through it. And, I've always offered support to be there for them if they need me, whatever the case may be.
I love that. How about you, Emily? How do you teach teachers to teach their students how to persevere?
When I think about perseverance, I look at those as opportunities, because the reality is we're all going to have opportunities to persevere. And earlier you asked the question about, which comes first, courage or the perseverance. Well, what I think, I'm going to play the teacher in me is coming out now, that the actual perseverance gives you the opportunity to manifest in courage. So without the opportunity to persevere, courage may not birth. So one of the things I tell our pre-service teachers is that you're going to have those opportunities to persevere, and you get to choose and decide and make decisions whether or not this is something that you want to push through or give up on. Because here's the thing, I'm such a realist to the point where I'm giving you permission to give up if that's what you choose. I'm not making the decision for you to push through. That's got to come from within you. And so I think that's empowering for them, because they realize they're really in control of their lives. And I think what's happening with young people, and I work with them all the time, is that we as adults have told them how to think. And now they're coming to us as young adults asking us, what do I do? Because nobody's showed them how to problem solve, how to think through problems and make decisions. And, for the first time in their life, somebody asked them, so what do you think about this? And they've never been asked that. They've just been told what to do.
How about you, Mandy? How do you teach when you're going around teaching other women and teaching your children even? How do you teach them to this is how you persevere? This is what perseverance is. How do you teach that in them?
Yeah, I think for me, it comes also back down to your values, because we live out of our value system, whether we know what they're not are or not, whether we articulate them or not. And so I think back to when my son was particularly young, we always said to him, played a lot of sport. And so Matt is 20 at the moment. And I remember particularly the one term he was playing tennis, and he was doing some extra coaching, and he wanted to give up. And we said to him, Matt, we know it's hard, but you've committed to it for this tennis season. If after the tennis season you decide to give up, then that's okay. But you can't give up in the middle of the season, and you have to press through. And I think it's so easy for people these days that it's just, I want a quick fix. I want to take the thing that will, make everything right. And I want to move on to the next thing because it's easier. I think we need to have people in our lives that can strengthen us and encourage us and can spur us on and say, come on, you can do this. Some people are internally motivated. They have this internal locus of control. Other people are motivated by other things, whether it's goals or outside support. And so I think if you know how you're wired, then you can bring people or other things in your life to strengthen you, to help you to push through, to persevere, to get through to the other side. And I think if you have a goal and you have something in mind and you say, well, this is the life I want to live. This is who I want to be. This is the kind of woman I want to be. This is the family I want to raise. This is the business I want to start. I want to grow. It gives you the impetus to keep going.
Did you have someone that was an influence or that inspired you because you saw that they had they knew how to persevere and they had an excellent life? And when I say an excellent life, I don't mean a perfect life, but a life that is worthy of wanting to be like that. Because I see all three of you. People are watching you, all of you right now, saying, "Wow, I would love to have a life of excellence like what they have." But I would love to know who was your influence.
I believe really strongly in mentors and discipleship and coaching. And I remember particularly there was this one lady. I'm an A-type leader. I'm quite a strong, upfront kind of person, and we realize you get different types of leaders, and but this lady was also a strong woman, and I've always been drawn to strong women because sometimes people feel threatened by a woman if they're a strong personality, and I think we need to be comfortable in our own skin to be secure in who we are. And this woman, Jill Napier, she was, older than me, and she mentored me. And I used to surf a lot at the time, and I would come back from surfing and talk to her about all these things, and she would pull me, pull me straight, because I was about 19. But she was also a leader, but she started to speak life over me. She started to encourage me. And so through the years, I've had different leaders. Floyd McClung's wife, Sally McClung, she also mentored me. And I've definitely had strong women influencing my life, encouraging me and spurring me on so that I could see what can be done in different spheres. Yes.
I love that. How about you, Holly? Were there any women in your life that either influenced you or inspired you to stay the course?
Not really. I mean, I had girlfriends, in the military, and girlfriends from, outside the military, but I didn't have any one person that influenced me. I had a man. I think it was just people that saw potential in me and encouraged me to keep going. I'm like, wow, that person really thinks I have what it takes. I'm gonna continue. And then also, like I said before, the people that tell me I can't do it, those people really encouraged me the most.
I love that.
As far as one person that encouraged me, I didn't really have that one female role model, unfortunately.
Well, do you realize what a role model you are right now for other young ladies watching you?
Yes, I hope. I hope to be.
It's good. You have been, and I know there's a lot of young ladies watching you in so many different areas, whether it is from the discipline of being in the military or it is from the discipline of how well you handle yourself with staying fit, and just your demeanor and how you handle people. You're very kind. You're truthful, but you're loving with them. You care about them, but you're going to be honest about it too. And I see where so many people would look at that and say, gosh, that's exactly how I want to be, because that is not achievable overnight.
Yes.
So
I just always try to be genuine and treat others like I would want to be treated.
And you do. I can honestly say that. I know that she doesn't. Right now, before we end, I do want to say thank you, Holly, for serving our country. Thank you for putting yourself out there for us. I want to thank you first for your service to our country. But thank you also for being a leader. You had choices along the way. You didn't have to be the kind of leader you are. And for you to have pursued a life of excellence, it's evidential. And I thank you for that, because we do need strong women. We need strong women leaders. We need women out there who know how to do it with grace and with courage. And I see that in all of you. So I just want to thank you right now, Holly, for that. And so, Emily, I wanted to ask you, who was your mentor, your inspiration?
I think I'm kind of like Holly. I don't think I have a one person. Well, I can tell you from a personal perspective, obviously my mother has been probably the most influential woman, but as far as from a professional aspect, I think I'm kind of a buffet of people. So tidbits from people along my journey and picked up on things that, I feel like this can be a part of who I am, and that's made me who I am today. So there's been numerous people that's played a part in who I am today. And I recognize that. I wouldn't say there's a one person professional.
Yeah. Well, thank you, because you also are influencing young ladies that are looking at you saying, I want to be like you. I like how you're living your life. And I know your sons are living out a life that I've seen you live. They are living a life of excellence, and they're caring about people, and they love people genuinely. And you and your husband both. But we're focusing on you tonight, so I don't tell him more. I'm not trying to hurt his feelings. But thank you for being here tonight, and for being a person that was going to be courageous enough to be an influencer. Thank you. I appreciate that. And Mandy, I want to thank you again for being here and for sharing your book. I cannot wait for everyone to have a chance to get this into their hands. And I there are so many people looking at you all over the world too, wherever you're speaking, going, wow, I want to have the courage that she has. So I just want you to know we're going to be not only praying for you, but thinking about you as you go and travel all over the world globally, standing up for women and being that strong person, even when you're scared. So thank you for your excellent life. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Darla.
Before we go, I want to just recap, and we'll just start with you, Emily, and we'll go through just a couple of takeaways. Perseverance and excellence, courage. Just have you got a couple of takeaways for everyone to just how can I do this?
Well, I think sometimes we try to capture this thing called life in one day. But I think the biggest thing I would say to, whether it be a young person in the middle of their career, just a woman in life, just to think about the moment. And, I've heard this before that, wherever your feet are, be there. Be where your feet are. And I think it's so important to be present in the moment, because sometimes we get so focused on our future, on what's happening tomorrow, 5 years from now, that we forget to realize, like, there's a life we're living right this moment. And if we can kind of just take that step this moment, the moment leads to days, days leads to weeks, weeks leads to a month, and pretty soon you have life.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Be where your feet are. I like that. That is one thing I've been practicing, is being present in the moment and what that looks like, whether I'm with my grandchildren, or whether I'm in a board meeting, or whether I am, just sitting around friends, being here with y'all. Being present and really listening. Thanks for sharing that. How about you, Holly? What's a couple of takeaways that you'd like to share and help people to understand the value of perseverance?
Well, I think that everybody needs to understand that they don't have to go through it alone, that there's people out there. I think that you and I
Thank you.
discussed the other day that,
Yeah.
when I retired, it wasn't something that I was prepared to do. It was something that it was a wrench thrown in my plan, but it was a decision I made, and I needed to do it. And I kind of felt like I was doing it alone, and I didn't have the support. And there's a friend of mine who also was retiring at the same time, and we didn't even talk to each other. When we talked to each other, everything was great. We were both like, everything's great. When we were both were dying inside. And she has since started a group for female veterans that are either retired or going to retire. And I think that is huge to have that group, or to know that there's other people out there experiencing the same thing. I just needed somebody to tell me that I was normal, and that what I was feeling was okay. And so I think having that group, that tribe of people, is important. And so I would say that you don't have to go through it alone. Look for your tribe.
I love that. That is so true. And that's what we're trying to offer here on the Lioness Summit. And that was how I even came up with the name of the Lioness Summit, because as a lioness, she doesn't go hunting alone. She has the pride goes with her. They all go together. The lionesses together accomplish their goal. And you can't be the best version of yourself alone. You just can't, because you're not always going to be strong enough, and you weren't designed to be. So thank you for being vulnerable. And if you would, when we do our follow-ups, I would love for you to share that information about that group with the people watching, so that they can also know about that. So thank you, Holly. I appreciate that. How about you, Mandy?
Yeah, Darla, so just listening to Holly and Emily, if I can summarize, so Emily spoke about being present, and Holly spoke about having people around you. So sticking with the P's, I was going to add living with purpose, because if you're in the moment, and you know who you are, and you're living present, you have your tribe around you, and you have your vision, you're living a life on purpose, then that gives you the ability to kind of persevere and to endure. And also at the same time, when you couple all of that with courage, it takes courage to be present. It takes courage to say, I'm not going to look at my phone and focus on, the future and all those things. I'm here. It takes courage to do that. It takes courage to be vulnerable with people and have people around you in your life. And it takes courage as well to live with purpose and to live out your vision and to not compromise on that. And so in all of that, you can really build perseverance with excellence in your life.
I love it. Thank you. Y'all have been amazing tonight. And I want to thank y'all again for coming on and being a part of the Lioness Summit, and helping us to understand that from where each of you are coming from, that it wasn't easy, and you've faced some really hard times. You've faced some exciting times, and you've also decided, and I love how Holly said, "Oh, just tell me I can't do it. Just watch." I love it. I love that attitude, because we need that as women. Everything that we go through, we need to have that attitude of, yes, I can. And to do it within our own rhythm, to find out how we can do that. So I wanted to challenge all of you watching to live out your courage. And to not be afraid to step in and make decisions and to persevere, because it will lead to where you're wanting to go. To set your goals and set big goals. Don't set little bitty goals, because like Emily said, if it doesn't challenge you, it's not going to change you. So don't be afraid. I know I've spent a lot of time, I know we all have, all of us here, chasing those big goals. And that's what makes you a leader. And I appreciate all of you and your leadership here tonight. So thank you so much for being here. And I want to encourage everyone to join us again on March 31st will be the next Lioness Summit. And I want to thank you ladies right here, right now. People who are getting the replay will get to watch this, and we may come up with some more questions later on. So when I get them, I will definitely pass them along to you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Darla.
Thank you. Good to meet you.
Yeah, thank you so much.